Well, hello again. We are here talking about algebraic transformations. And so now we've been talking about the verticals. Let's talk about the horizontals. Yes. Oh, hey, what if we wanted our picture, our little artwork, what if we wanted to move it left and right? Move it to the left, move it to the right. What if we wanted to do that? What if we wanted to take a hold of the sides and stretch it? Or if we wanted to take all the sides and compress? Or what if we wanted to reflect? Anything on the left goes to the right, anything on the right goes to the left. What if we wanted to do those things? Again, we learned how to do that algebraically with vertical directions. Let's talk about some horizontal stuff and get into move that way as well. So let's do that today. We're going to talk first about horizontal transformations. The transformations horizontally. Now, algebraically, what I want you to think about is horizontal stuff algebraically. You get these horizontal things to occur inside grouping symbols. If you wanted to do something horizontal in the algebra, if you want to get to do it in the geometry, in the algebra, you need to think about inside grouping symbols. Grouping symbols could be square root symbols or cube root symbols or absolute value symbols or parentheses, and so those are the grouping symbols that we've learned about. So algebra, we can get that to do horizontal stuff inside those grouping symbols. First one we're going to focus on again is shifts. Again, that's looking left and right. For translations, moving it left and right, just taking the parent and moving it one way or the other. Okay, we move it from left to right. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to use our parent graph, our popular. Let's stay with quadratic. So let's talk about Papa being the x squared, y equal x squared function. And we want to move that left and right. Well, we have to do that inside parentheses. We still need to stay in the family of parabola. So we want to make sure that we stay with our squared. Okay? We have to have the function be squared. So outside the parentheses, again, we're doing inside grouping symbols for horizontal stuff. We learned with vertical that we shift things. Okay? So shifting that is adding. So we're going to add things to our function, but we're going to add it inside parentheses. And algebraically, what we're doing is we're adding it to the x value itself before we apply the squaring of the quadratic power. So we want to think of it as we're squaring this, and so we have that shifting of adding happening inside the parentheses. Well, you see that I've typed in there plus. Right? From vertical, connecting to what we've already learned, adding something would go what direction? It's inside parentheses, so it's going to either shift it, it's going to be a horizontal shift, but would that move it to the right? Or would that move it to the left? Go ahead and say it out loud so I can hear it. Well, let's see if you're right. And that naturally we would think adding something positive direction is right. If you're going to add something negative or subtract, that would be to the left. And you would think that to be true. Well, let's see what happens when we're looking at the picture of the functions coming forth and graphing. So there's Papa. Ooh, what direction did it go? Yeah, it moved to the left, didn't it? It was pushed to the left on your screen. Pushed to the left. So that's a note to self. Horizontal things. When you're looking at y equal as a function, when the y has been isolated, you're looking at the f of x, the function as it applies to x being the horizontal component of the function. When the function is written that way and you're moving horizontal things, it seems to go opposite of what you would intuitively think. Again, algebraically, we added something positive. Positive direction to make you think right. but it didn't move right. It moved to the left. Okay, so there's two ways. It's actually, you can think of it as two ways. It's not what the direction of your horizontal movement isn't determined by what you're adding inside the parentheses, even though adding does shift horizontally. But it's not what you're adding, it's actually what you're subtracting. So adding a negative 2 is the same thing subtracting a negative 2 is the same thing as adding a positive. So it's really not what you're adding, it's what you're subtracting that determines the direction of the shift. Did you hear that? It's not what you're adding, it's what you're subtracting that determines the direction of the shift. So if I have an x plus 2 inside that parenthesis, that's the same thing as subtracting a negative, going opposite the negative direction. What's opposite? Well, then we're subtracting. And so inside, it's really what you're subtracting. Well, if I'm adding 2, then what am I subtracting? I'm subtracting a negative 2. What direction is a negative 2? Negative is left. And that's why you get that negative direction off of 0, 0 to the left. Moving it to the left. Okay? So you can think of it that way, or you can think of it, hey, just go opposite. That's kind of think backwards. Hey, when you're doing it inside the symbol, inside the square root symbol, inside the cube root symbol, inside the absolute value symbol, inside the parenthesis, when you're doing horizontal things, you kind of want to think opposite of what you kind of intuitively have learned with vertical things, opposite of what the vertical kind of tells you. So if I wanted to go to the right, I wanted to move that not to the left, but to the right. It's horizontal, so I got to put it where? Inside parentheses. So I'm going to go x minus 2, and it got to stay in the family of squared, so I make sure it stays squared. And so that's what the algebra would look like. X plus 2 squared, x minus 2. Now, what am I subtracting inside that third function there? X minus 2. What am I subtracting? I'm subtracting a positive 2. What direction is positive? Right. It's the little right direction. So we would see then, as I graph these three functions, there's the 2. Sure enough, that third one does shift to the right. Did you see it come up there? So that's how you do things. So that's horizontal shifting. Horizontal is a little bit different thinking process, not as intuitive in direction or in effect that the vertical was. That's why we teach the vertical first. So horizontal is a little more funky, little funkier functions when you start doing horizontal stuff. But hey, you are on your way. You are 2/3 of the way through. We've got 2 more lessons. 2 more lessons too. We're going to look at, next lesson, we're going to look at stretches and compressions horizontally, and then the third one we're going to look at reflections. Hey, you're doing great. Later.